You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, my name's Anthony Leverett, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and I am joined by Hannah Huesman from Mental Sweat. Hannah is a mental performance coach, and together we are doing a series on 18 different topics related to mental performance, and it's been a ton of fun. Hannah, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so going to dive right into this, and today's topic is emotional regulation, emotional control. And I don't know when this episode's getting released, but in the news recently, we got a great example of not having emotional control on television. A parent of a professional athlete rushing out onto the court and showing everybody the opposite of emotional control. What is, for just to begin the conversation, what is emotional regulation, right? Because we all have passion and we want to display that passion when we're performing and playing. And as a young athlete, I'm watching this in 7-on-7 right now. I'm seeing third graders spin the ball and like talk smack to their kid that they just knocked the ball away from in a football game. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
What is emotional control, and why is it so important to talk about and learn?
Yeah. So when I think about emotional regulation, I think about it's the ability to effectively manage and respond to emotional experiences, right? Which in sports, there's a lot, right? Whether it's good or bad or neutral, or you're just upset or sad or whatever, right? It's just an emotional reaction to whatever's going on right in front of you. And I'll start by saying this, right? We are human beings. Your kids are human beings. We are emotional beings. And that is not a bad thing, right? And so when you're talking about this, I would just say tread with caution, right? Because a lot of times we're trying to push down the emotion or pretend like they're not there or suffocate them or just keep the lid on really, really tight, which in the last episode we talked about, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do, right? So it's just understanding that emotions are real. So we're going to have them. So instead of saying no emotion, right, let's just practice how we're going to respond respectively and effectively so that it doesn't impact our performance in a negative way. So it's some people have bigger emotions than others. Also, that's okay, right? That stems from how you were raised, what environment you were brought up in, right? Some of us are emotionless. Some of us have tons of emotion. Some of us are right there in the middle, right? So everybody's going to be different and look different in this category, but it really doesn't matter to me. All that matters is you're aware of what kind of an emotional being you are. And then you have practiced and thought about how you're going to handle your emotions when, you know, what hits the fan.
So keep talking about practicing these things, right? All of these skills are practiced, just like shooting a basketball, throwing a football, catching a ball, swimming, whatever it is, there's practice involved in that. And the same thing with our brains.
Yeah.
Why is it so important for young people to begin to learn not to suppress their emotions, but to be able to have control around those emotions compared to starting it when you're my age in your 50s? Why is it so important that begins at a young age?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all probably look back on our careers and say we made some mistakes, and I would be willing to bet 10 times out of 10 they are from emotions, right? Like getting the best of us, right? Isn't that a saying? Oh, my emotions got the best of us. Well, what can we prevent that? Can we be better than that? And when I was talking about mental performance, this is one of my most fond memories about mental performance. It was when in my very first internship with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and there was a coach there who worked there for like twice as long as I had been alive. So I think at the time I was like 25, and he had just gotten an award for being with them for about 50 years. And it was like unbelievable. So he had been around the game a lot, and he was like talking a lot about mental performance. And he was like, yeah, but I already know all this stuff. And I'm like, no, I know you know all this stuff, right? You've been in the game for 50 years. Like, of course you know all this stuff. But what about Joe Schmo over here who only has like a year and a half to show us that what he's made of, and he doesn't have 50 years to learn all this, right? Like, how can we expedite that process for them? And that's what mental performance is, right? Experiences teach us so much. And like, we can look back and be like, wow, this situation got the best of me. I learned from it. I grew from it. But what if I didn't have to totally go through all that? Like, it would have been a whole heck of a lot nicer if I had someone tell me how to control my emotions than learning the hard way over whatever, 15, 20 years. And so that's what comes to mind when you ask that question is, okay, how do we shorten the distance between them learning about what it is and them exploding and having hopefully not irreparable damage, right? But like to their reputation or anything, right? But because that happens, especially in pro sports, right? You're on a heightened screen, you're on a heightened podium, everybody sees your every move. Like, you're gonna show your rear end out there. And so I think the sooner you talk about it, the better. But again, how you talk about it, I think, is the most important part, right? Like, I love that human beings are emotional. I love that you're mad that you struck out. I love that you're mad that you didn't succeed. I love that you're mad that you saw a teammate not hustle, right? But it's like, let's have a conversation around that. Like, how are you going to handle that? Because are you hustling 100% of the time? You've never not hustled before, right? It's like helping them see that perspective too. But I think you really just have to talk about, okay, and this is what I would do if I had a kid. I'd say, okay, we got season coming up this year. What are the things that you know might happen, like a pretty good chance of happening, that might really piss you off or that might derail you, right? Less of a crazy term, right? It might derail you. Okay, I know when I strike out, I get mad. I know when so-and-so shows up late, I get mad. I know when the coach yells at me, I get mad or I get upset or sad. I know when I almost hit a home run, but somebody robs me, that I'm going to get mad. Whatever it is, right? You list these out and then you talk about ways you're going to handle it. Okay, how are you going to respond to this? And a lot of times it's the same response with a little variation. So there's really only one way you respond, but you know how you're going to do that. And again, you can let yourself be emotional in that moment, right? And maybe you show a little bit of it out there, but you don't go full blast level 10. And then you can come home in your own safe space with your mom and dad and be like, that's made me so mad, right? Like, that's okay. It's just like, don't forget, if how you're going to act out there, if it's going to impact you or it's going to impact the team negatively, you cannot do it. Like, it's a non-negotiable. Because also, why would you want to do something that would hurt your performance or your teammates' performance? Like, how selfish could you possibly be? And so I think when you start thinking about that and talking about it like that, then it's like, okay, if you are here to be the best you can be, and hopefully you're there to help the team be the best they can be, it's a really easy conversation. And it's like, hey, how do we handle this? What's it going to look like? Is it going to be easy? No. Is it going to be really hard? Yes. Is it impossible? No.
I love it. And I think the modeling too from parents of showing emotional control during your kids' performance can go a long ways. You've heard me talk about this before, but no kid wants their parent to be the one screaming and yelling at them from the stands or yelling at the coaches or yelling at the officials. And then I talk about this, having a plan as a parent for post game of making sure you don't let your emotions take over immediately when the kid gets in the car. Have a plan not to talk about the game with your kid, except for I love you, I love watching you play, great job, for at least an hour afterwards. And I think that modeling of that, your own control around their performance, can show them what that looks like versus what we see occasionally on television, but what we see every day in youth sports is parents losing their minds on everybody around them and their own children.
Brutal. That's so brutal.
It's brutal. Have a plan and model it for your kids.
Yeah, but they're watching that too. Like, you have to remember that. I saw a funny one. It was like, who's the loudest mom on the team? And it's like, it was a joke. And I was like, I don't know if that's something to be proud of, but here we are.
Well, when you take this conversation, I'm guessing, maybe not, that this is a hard one in corporate America. Who in the workplace needs this? Like, is this when you walk in, is this something that you bring to the forefront? Is this something that people ask you to help them with? Who in the workforce, who in the workplace needs this conversation?
I think that's a great question. And the first thing that comes to my mind is like middle level managers, right? It's the people who have people working under them. That can be really frustrating, but they also have people working above them who are holding them to a standard. And so they're kind of being pulled two directions, but also, having to take the brunt of it for the people underneath them and show up. And so I think there's a lot of emotion that comes in that. And there's a lot of, even as you continue to climb the ladder, right? There's a lot of emotions. And if you are the CEO of a company or president of a company and you're an emotional wreck, which I have seen that on high level teams. I won't name names, but there are emotional GMs, and it's wild to watch that ripple effect, right? It's like how again, emotions are normal and good to a certain extent, but when they start impacting the work that you do and the people who are around you and the people who are looking up to you, then you've got an issue, right? And it's really about taking a look in the mirror and seeing like, how are my actions affecting those around me? Is it helping or hurting? And if it's hurting, then we need to make an adjustment. But I would say it's that mid-level management and up, who really can get heated, and have a lot of emotions and have to really be careful on how they decide to show them.
How,
Because sometimes you can show it and it's advantageous, right? And it's
yeah.
intentional and it's purposeful, and we got to get these people going and we got to figure this out. And sometimes it's completely irrational and out of control.
And I think back in sports, right, you can lose your mind on your team maybe once a year, twice a year. And there's a time where they, oh, wow. But if that happens all the time, what you're trying to get across just gets tuned out, and you're not listened to anymore.
If you're breaking a clipboard every game.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, oh, there goes the coach. There goes again. There goes my boss again. Like, oh, who cares? So move on to the next thing, and you're not going to get anything out of that.
So it's using it with intention, right? Which I do think is powerful and purposeful.
Yes.
Like, there's a right and a wrong time to do it. But again, that's a controlled, strategized emotional response, right? Which is perfect. And I think that's great and beautiful.
What are some techniques for that middle management? What are some things that I can take, and this might go back to our mindfulness conversation. I don't know how you're going to answer this, but what are some techniques for someone who's in middle management, wants to move up, right? I want to move up the chain, and it's really important to me that the people below me do their job. And I'm really struggling with regulating myself when that doesn't happen, because it's impacting my ability to move. What are some techniques that you teach, that you recommend for people who are struggling with this?
Yeah. Good question. I think to me, it comes back to a stimulus occurs and you're going to respond in some way, shape, or form. It's the time in between that's like invaluable, right? So things are going to happen as a manager. There's going to be things that piss you off, that upset you, that don't go your way. And you have to figure out what you want to do before you respond to that. So step one is you cannot react, right? Like, you cannot emotionally react unless that's the plan, which then that should be a thought out plan before you're actually doing it. But you have a stimulus, something happens, and then you either take a deep breath, you get yourself out of the situation, you stay quiet for a minute, right? Count to 10, 15 before you say anything, whatever it is. And this is where it gets like personal, right? And this is where mental performance isn't super cookie cutter. And it's like really like, what would work for you in this instance? Like, do you need to get up and leave the room? Do you just need to stand up? Do you need to take a sip of water? Do you need to take 10 deep breaths? Do you need to count backwards from 100? Like, do you need to hum a song again? Like, right? It's like whatever can bring you to neutral before you speak. So to me, it's like something happens, get yourself to neutral, gather your thoughts, and then proceed forward. And then at that point, if you've processed what you want to do and how you want to say it, and you want to be emotional, okay, great, right? You've rationalized it, and you're still choosing how you respond instead of just like emotional visceration, right? And you're just like destroying people. And then you have to come back and apologize, and it's a bigger deal, right? It's also like, weigh your options, right? Like, what do you want to do? Wait for a second. Also, silence is never a bad thing. And I tell people that all the time in the work field. Like, the people outside and around you are panicking more than you are when you're being quiet, because they're like, what are you thinking? What's happening? Are you mad? Are you okay? And then when you have time to gather your thoughts and you say something so profound, it's taken a whole lot better. And they're like, wow, that was really thought out and processed, versus like, what did they just say? And you're like kind of thinking out loud as you're talking. And it's like you're jumbling everywhere and you're not really making sense. And it's like, actually gather your thoughts, stay quiet, be confident. If you need to be emotional, be emotional. If not, leave it out and just get the point across. But that's a hard skill. Like, it's a hard skill for coaches. It's a hard skill for teammates. Teammates are irrational. It's a hard skill for bosses and managers and owners and CEOs and all that. It's a very hard skill. But I mean, you think about the best leaders you've ever had, emotional probably isn't one of them. Like, it's probably not one of the top 3-5 characteristics, right? Of like, if anything, if they're emotional, it's like good emotion, right? Just like passionate. Passionate is different than emotional, right? Like, big difference there. And so you don't really want to be the person who's just emotionally out of control. So
I've worked under some great leaders. I've worked under some bad leaders, and I think the one thing that I learned from a guy named Gordy James, who learned under John Wooden and just brilliant guy, told me that the first thing that comes out of your mouth in a conversation that's going to be hard, when it's going to be critical of somebody, the first sentence is going to go a long way in how that conversation is going to end. Is there going to be a received message, or is there going to be a deflected message? And if I start the conversation with, what the hell are you doing? Right? Like, what was that? It doesn't matter if I'm John Wooden or Gordy James or Hannah Huesman. It's not going to be well received. If I start with, hey, we have something that we need to discuss. You've been doing a great job in this area, but there's something that we can do that's going to be better. Then now you have a platform to be able to talk about that. And that takes emotional regulation and not reactiveness, to your point of having a plan and processing what you're going to say before you say it.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, you think about too, how hard is a conversation with somebody who's emotional? It's very hard, right? And it's one thing. It's funny when I think about that, I think about like crying, and like that's hard too. That's a totally different emotion. But I'm talking about somebody who's like so hot-headed, so angry, like literally it's like, let's cool off and come back. Like, and so it's like, just think about, if you're talking about culture and you're talking about building an environment and you're a leader or you're a parent, like, don't like look away from how much that can actually damage the culture, the vibe, the group you're trying to create, just because you're an emotional hothead. Like, it's having more damage than you think, because talking with somebody who's overly emotional or doesn't have control of their emotions is almost impossible. And it's discouraging. And so people will stop coming to talk to you, or they'll ignore you, or they'll avoid you at all costs. And that's where it becomes really damaging, when like now this whole like have an open door, have conversations, ask good questions. You can't do that if we can't even get past emotional regulation. So
yeah,
it's scary. And we've all been there. We've all seen it. We've all been victim to it. And that's like, it's like, we've been a victim of it. So why in the world would we want to be doing that too? You know?
And I think coming back to that point of, you're trying to deliver a message, right? There's something needs to be fixed, right? You're not upset because something didn't happen incorrectly, right? That somebody didn't do their job right, or somebody did something that impacted somebody else. Whatever, that someone missed a shot in the coaching world. It's not, you want to help them do better. That's the result that you're trying to get. So try to remember that the result you're trying to get is going to happen far better and far more often if you approach this, and I hate to use the word rational, I hate the word, but in a rational manner, in a controlled manner that delivers your point, while instead of tearing that person down, you're building them up to do it better.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And even if you don't like the word rational, you don't want to be irrational.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Think about that. Like when you're talking or arguing with somebody and you're like, you're irrational. Like, it's like, that's like, where do you even go from that? You're irrational. We can't even have a conversation right now. So no, I think that's very, very well said.
What at the last point here today, in the workplace, you've seen both sides. Just how much better is a workplace that has emotional regulation and control and mindfulness and thought process about how we deliver messages versus the other? How much better is the performance? How much better is the environment, the culture, when you see that versus the opposite of that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody has it totally perfectly figured out. Like, I haven't seen that, but you at least see people trying. And I think the biggest difference is you get people, the goal is to get people to be the best version of themselves. Well, they get to be themselves when they realize there's not going to be irrational outbreaks, or there's time for yourselves, or we want you to take care of yourself because we know if you do that, you'll be great. And so it's just like this open dialogue of like, not acceptance, but like understanding, right? Maybe a culture of understanding that we're humans who are performing, not performers who are right? Like, we are still human beings. And so I think you get camaraderie, you get joy in your workforce, which is like for some reason stripped from a lot of people's work. And it's just 8 to 5, head down, get out. Right. And it's like, what if you could enjoy it? What if you did like the people you worked with? What if it felt more human than just work and performing? And some people don't want to feel that when they're at work, right? They almost want to disassociate. But if this is a long-term career that you are punching the clock in for, like, God forbid we don't enjoy any of it, right?
Yeah.
And we just like hate it and it's miserable. And that's a really, really hard place to be. But so I think if anything, it just brings like connectivity, joy, and allowing people to be who they are, which at the end of the day, hopefully gets the best out of them.
Which is what everybody wants in a leadership position, right? Is to get the best out of your people, because that makes you look better. It makes the company better. It makes your team better. It makes your whatever organization you're a part of. Getting the best out of your people is what you want.
Yeah.
Learning how to do that and practice your point over and over again. You have to practice these habits, put yourselves in these situations so you can practice it, so you don't react in a way that you don't want to. And it's just incredibly valuable information. And the culture within that organization, you want people, I really believe most people want people to feel good when they walk away from them.
Yeah.
You want people to, Maya Angelou, right? Like, how did you make people feel?
Totally.
And that's something that, if practice, can make for a much better environment for all the people that come in contact with you.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the quote? People want to know that you care before they care what you know.
Yeah.
Like it's brilliant, right? Like, I want to know that you care about me before you come tell me all the things you do know, right? And all the things you can do. If you care about me, I'm going to work pretty hard for you. Think about that. Like,
that's right.
From a family perspective, sports, corporate world, like, if I know you care, you give a shit about me, then all right, I'm going to work hard for you, which is fair. Like, right? Like, that's fair. If I know you don't give two poos about me, then why? What is motivating me to work hard besides my own success, which you hope you have that too, but like, that's just a really hard workplace environment if you feel like who you're working for doesn't value you or believe in you. So
I think that's a beautiful place to end this conversation. As always, I have enjoyed this immensely. I'm sure our listeners will as well. Tell people how they can find you.
Yeah, so all over social media, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and my website is hannahhuesman.com.
Well, thanks to our listeners for listening. This is the Next Pitch podcast. Please like us, follow us, rate us, whatever all those things are that you do. And hopefully you'll come back and listen to the next episode as we continue this series with Hannah Huesman. Thanks again, Hannah.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.